Topic 4.7 Expanding Democracy. The political activity which pervades the United States must be seen in order to be understood. No sooner do you set foot upon American soil than you are stung by a kind of tumult. Alexis de Tocqueville, Democracy in America, 1835. Learning objective. Explain the causes and effects of the expansion of participatory democracy from 1800 to 1848. The changing politics of the period from 1800 to 1848 paralleled complex social and economic changes. Greater equality. Visitors to the United States in the 1830s, such as Alexis de Tocqueville, a young French aristocrat, were amazed by the informal manners and democratic attitudes of the Americans. In hotels, men and women from all classes ate together at common tables. On stagecoaches, steamboats, and later in railroad cars, there was only one class for passengers, so rich and poor alike sat together in the same compartments. European visitors could not distinguish between classes in the United States. Men of all backgrounds wore simple black trousers and jackets, while less well-to-do women emulated the fanciful and confining styles illustrated in wide circulation women's magazines like Godey's Lady's Book. Equality was becoming the governing principle of American society. The rise of a democratic society. Among the white majority in American society, people shared a belief in the principle of equality. More precisely, equality of opportunity for white males. These beliefs ignore the enslavement of most African Americans and discrimination against everyone who was not white. Equality of opportunity would, at least in theory, allow a young man of humble origins to rise as far as his natural talent and industry would take him. The hero of the age was the self-made man. There was no equivalent belief in the self-made woman. Restrictions, both legal and cultural, limited what women could do. But by the end of 1840s, feminists would take up the theme of equal rights and insist that it should be applied to both women and men. See topic 4.11. Politics of the common man. Between 1824 and 1840, politics moved out of the fine homes of rich southern planters and northern merchants who had dominated government in past eras and into middle and lower class homes. Several factors contributed to the spread of democracy, including new suffrage laws, changes in political parties and campaigns, improved education, and increases in newspaper circulation. Universal white male suffrage. Western states newly admitted to the Union, Indiana, 1816, Illinois, 1818, and Missouri, 1821, adopted state constitutions that allowed all white males to vote and hold office. These newer constitutions omitted any religious or property qualifications for voting. Most eastern states soon followed suit, eliminating such restrictions. As a result, throughout the country, all white males could vote regardless of their social class or religion. Voting for president rose from about 350,000 in 1824 to more than 2.4 million in 1840, a nearly seven-fold increase in just 16 years, mostly as a result of changes in voting laws. In addition, political offices could be held by people in lower and middle ranks of society. Changes to parties and campaigns. Though not mentioned in the Constitution, political parties quickly became important. They channeled the energies of people into choosing leaders. Party nominating conventions. In the past, candidates for office had commonly been nominated either by state legislators or by King Caucus, a closed-door meeting of a political party's leaders in Congress. Common citizens had no opportunity to participate. In 1830s, however, caucuses were replaced by nominating conventions. Party politicians and voters would gather in a large meeting hall to nominate the party's candidates. The Anti-Masonic Party was the first to hold such a nominating convention. This method was more open to popular participation, hence more democratic. Popular election of the electors. In the presidential election of 1832, only South Carolina used the old system in which the state legislature chose the electors for president. All other states had adopted the more democratic method of allowing the voters to choose a state's slate of presidential electors. Two-party system. The popular election of presidential electors, and indirectly the president, had important consequences for the two-party system. Campaigns for president now had to be conducted on a national scale. To organize these campaigns, candidates need large political parties. Rise of third parties. While only the large national parties, the Democrats and the Whigs in the 1830s, could hope to win the presidency, other political parties also emerged. The Anti-Masonic Party and the Workingmen's Party, for example, reach out to groups of people who previously had shown little interest in politics. The anti-Masons attacked the secret societies of Masons and accused them of belonging to an anti-democratic elite. The Workingmen's Party tried to unite artisans and skilled laborers into a political organization. More elected offices. During the Jacksonian era, a larger proportion of state and local officials were elected to office instead of being appointed as they had been in the past. This change gave voters more voice in their government and also tended to increase their interest in participating in elections. Popular campaigning. Candidates for office directed their campaigns to the interests and prejudices of the common people. Politics also became a form of local entertainment. Campaigns of the 1830s and 1840s featured parades of floats and marching bands and large rallies in which voters were treated to free food and drink. The negative side to the new campaign techniques was that in appealing to the masses, candidates would often resort to personal attacks and ignore the issues. A politician, for example, might attack an opponent's aristocratic airs and make him seem unfriendly to the common man. Spoils system and rotation of office holders. Winning government jobs became the lifeblood of party organizations. At the national level, President Jackson believed in appointing people to federal jobs, as postmasters, for example, strictly according to whether they had actively campaigned for the Democratic Party. Any previous holder of the office who was not a Democrat was fired and replaced with a loyal Democrat. This practice of dispensing government jobs in return for party loyalty was called the spoils system, because of a comment that in war, victors seized the spoils or wealth of the defeated. In addition, Jackson believed in a system of rotation in office. By limiting a person to one term in office, he could then appoint some other deserving Democrat in his place. Jackson defended the replacement and rotation of office holders as a democratic reform. No man, he said, has any more intrinsic claim to office than another. Both the spoils system and the rotation of office holders affirmed the democratic ideal that one man was as good as another and that ordinary Americans were capable of holding any government office. These beliefs also helped build a strong two-party system. Historical perspectives, the Jacksonians and expanding democracy. Historians debate whether the election of Jackson in 1828 marked a revolutionary and democratic turn in American politics. The traditional view is that Jackson's election began the era of the common man, when the masses of newly enfranchised voters drove out the entrenched ruling class and elected one of their own. The Revolution of 1828 was a victory of the democratic West against the aristocratic East. On the other hand, 19th century Whig historians viewed Jackson as a despot whose appeal to the uneducated masses and corrupt spoils system threatened the republic. Urban workers. In the 1940s, the historian Arthur M. Schlesinger, Jr. argued that Jacksonian democracy relied as much on the support of Eastern urban workers as on Western farmers. Jackson's coalition of farmers and workers foreshadow a similar coalition that elected another Democratic president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, in the 1930s. Cultural influence. Contemporary historians have used quantitative analysis of voting returns to show that increased voter participation was evident in local elections years before 1828 and did not reach a peak until the election of 1840, an election that the Whig Party won. Some historians argue that religion and ethnicity were more important than economic class in shaping votes. For example, Catholic immigrants objected to the imposition of Puritan moral code, for example, temperance, by the native-born Protestants. Economic clash. Recent historians see Jackson's popularity in the 1830s as a reaction of subsistence farmers and urban workers against the threatening forces of economic change. A capitalist or market economy was taking shape in the early years of the 19th century. This market revolution divided the electorate. Some, including many Whigs, wanted a greater role for business owners. Jackson's veto of the bank captured popular fears about the rise of capitalism. Support and argument. Explain two perspectives on the factors that caused the expansion of democracy in the early 19th century. Key terms by theme. Common men. Common men. Universal white male suffrage. Party nominating conventions. King caucus. Popular election of president. Politics. Anti-Masonic Party. Working Men's Party. Popular campaigning. Spoils system. Rotation in office.